It's good to see all of you today, whether you are joining us in person or online. I'm Jo Celine, OUUC Media Specialist. I use Z-Zir pronouns. This Zoom service is being recorded and it is streaming live to YouTube. For those of you in the sanctuary or in person today, please turn the volume off on any devices to avoid feedback, or just turn those devices off altogether. Please also note you can see subtitles on the screen at the front of the room. We ask that you please keep your mouth and nose covered by your mask while you are here. These measures are for everyone's safety. For those online, I hope you will find a candle or a chalice, and in a moment we can light them together. If you are online and experience any technical issues during the service, you can reach out to me or any other member of the tech team for assistance when the Zoom chat is on. Thank you all for your grace and adaptability as we all learn together.
Good morning. Let's join together in singing our morning song. It's hymn number 300, With Heart and Mind. You can also find the lyrics posted in the chat if you're online with us. With heart and mind and voice and hand, me this time and place transcend, to make our purpose understood, a mortal search for mortal good, a firm commitment to the goal of justice, freedom, peace for all. A mind that's free to seek the truth. A mind that's free from age and youth, to choose a path in peace, where mortal light of conscience leads. Our martyrs die so we could be a church where every mind is free. A heart that's kind, a heart that search, makes love the spirit of His church, where we can grow and each one's gift is sanctified and spirits lift, where every door is open wide for all who choose to step inside. Thank you for singing.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Olympia Unitarian Universalist Congregation online worship service. We welcome each of you to this celebration of love and to this congregation. The OUUC community comes together in the mutual promise and possibilities of our covenant. We envision an interconnected world that is loving, just, and healthy. We commit to live out our mission to welcome and wonder, embrace and empower, bridge and become. We are so glad you are here. My name is Curtis Tanner, and I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a member of the worship arts team. We are delighted to gather in the sanctuary again for Sunday services as we reopen for in-person worship. We will keep many of our safety practices in place, including masks, as we welcome up to 40 people into the sanctuary on Sundays. You can reserve your spot using the link in the chat, which is also in the Tuesday update, or by calling our office. We can offer each other grace and understanding as we learn to be together again. We are grateful for the many hands that helped make worship happen this morning. Thank you to the ushers and the greeters, to the breakout room hosts, the tech team members, all who have contributed in so many ways. After the service, everyone will have the chance to discuss reflection questions offered by Reverend Mary. For those online, we invite you into a small breakout room for a virtual coffee chat. This is a chance to gather with a small group to say hello and check in. Each breakout room is hosted by someone to help make sure everyone knows each other and has a chance to share. For those in person in the sanctuary here this morning, feel free to bring the reflection questions into the discussion, or if you want to join a group, you can gather with Reverend Mary near the rocker. The questions are printed in the order of service. Don't forget to tune in at 11:30 for After Church with Melanie Ransom. Melanie's special guest today is Riley Urich, a student minister currently sponsored by our congregation. I don't know about you, but I've really appreciated Melanie's work to help us to get to know each other and the many people that make OUUC such a special place. This week's Thursday evening spiritual practice will feature the March spiritual theme of Become. Reverend Mary, Troy, and Ann Radford create space for us to catch up with ourselves midweek. We hope you'll join them. Next Sunday, we welcome Reverend Carol McKinley to the OUUC pulpit. Reverend Carol is our affiliated community minister who helps support this community and Unitarian Universalism in so many ways. After the service, Melanie interviews Connie Johnson, OUUC's new member in Idaho. Last, the OUUC Environmental Action Team has a new challenge for us.
Good morning. I'm Joe Joy with a message from your OUUC Environmental Action Team. For the past 7 months, the team has offered you challenges to help the environment and to lessen the impact of the climate crisis. Most have been actions for you to take as an individual or household to reduce your carbon footprint. Our February challenge for you is to offer your skills, voice, time, and/or money to an organization doing something for the environment. One person's actions can make a difference, but when we join with others, we can often have a much larger impact. At OUUC, we've seen the power of collective action in many of our internal and community projects. So we're challenging you to get involved in a local, regional, national, or international environmental organization. There are so many groups, but there's so much to be done. We're sure you can find a group that fits your passion to help the environment. If you need some suggestions, go to the OUUC website, type Faith in Action Padlet in the search box. You'll be linked to the February monthly challenge article. At the end of the article is a link to our page with a few organizations, websites, books, films, and that may be of help to you. By the way, the Environmental Action Team is looking for members. If you're interested in helping OUUC stay green and to inform the congregation of environmental issues, we'd love to have you. Contact me or Wendy Stephenson. We're in the directory. Thank you very much.
This morning and every Sunday morning, we join Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world in lighting a chalice, the symbol of our faith tradition. Please join me as we light our chalices together with these words by Chris Crass. To become an anti-racist faith community, the key question for white majority community is not, how do we get people of color to join our community? It is instead, how can we make a prolonged, spiritually rooted, engaged commitment to uprooting white supremacy within our community and take ongoing collective action to challenge it in society? May the flame of our chalice light our way.
Good morning. Our opening words this morning are offered by Ellen Quadgrass. Sheltered in our homes or going to work at risk for weak after week after week. We're edgy, tired, a little bit raw. We are tender, vulnerable, open, a little more open than usual. Those of us who are white, who before may have been distracted, who before may have been too busy, who before might have been preoccupied with our lives, are noticing the ways injustice has happened to people of color. The same way, again and again and again. Now we have become aware. Please, may we be aware. May we not lose awareness. May we not get distracted. May we not turn away. May we be open, really open, accepting the invitation to change, really change our minds, our hearts, our world. When we encounter calls to defund the police, when we encounter calls for reparations, when we hear follow our lead from people of color, may we listen. May we learn. May we be open. Even if it means rethinking everything we thought we knew about the world. We have, all of us as humans, an enormous opportunity to change one of the oldest injustices in history, to change everything. May we stay vulnerable. May we stay tender. May we take action. Eyes, hearts, minds open. Come, let us worship together.
Let's sing together our opening song. My apologies to the people in the tech crew. I mixed the songs up, and I did the opening song for the morning song, and I'm sure that there was some racing around trying to get the right lyrics. So I just was trying to stay vulnerable this morning. Here I am. Our opening song now we will sing will be hymn number 151, Oh, I Woke Up This Morning, which was going to be our
153.
153. I'm looking at 153 and I said 151. 153, Oh, I Woke Up This Morning. And you can find, hopefully, the lyrics posted in the chat for this. Oh, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Well, I woke up this morning with my mind. It was stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. I was talking and talking with my mind, and it was stayed on
Each Sunday, we express our gratitude by joining together in service to our community and something greater than ourselves. The offering collected here does two things. It supports the ongoing work of OUUC, which is also supported by your regular pledges. This offering also supports an organization that serves our community in harmony with our Unitarian Universalist values. For the months of January and February, our Share the Plate recipient is Thurston Climate Action Team, TCAT. We have a video to share about their work.
Hi, everybody. My name is Melinda Hughes. I'm the Executive Director for Thurston Climate Action Team. You might know us better as TCAT. Basically, what we do is we work on reducing the greenhouse gas emissions around Thurston County. And we do that in several different ways. We work on different issues. The trees are big. We want to preserve trees, plant trees, educate people about trees. Transportation is another big area that we work on. We want to, see more people driving electric vehicles. We also work on buildings. Buildings is the #1 source of greenhouse gas emissions for Thurston County. So we're working on getting everybody to use more electric versus fossil fuels. One of our newer groups we have right now is the Food and Ag group, who's working on different things, food security, composting, all kinds of good stuff in that area. We also have a group that is an equity group. Climate change, most of the problems actually have been caused by the wealthy nations. It's usually the populations with the lower income or racial disparities that are actually hit the hardest. So one of the things when we work on climate change, we also work on the justice side of things. You may actually have seen a few of the things we've done around town. If you drive to the west side across the 4th Avenue Bridge from Olympia, we have a climate justice mural in that roundabout. So that's a really exciting thing. So if you haven't picked up on that, you might want to drive across the bridge and look at that. We're hoping to do some more art projects similar to that around town. So that's something that maybe that actually your support may end up helping us do a little bit of. And we're also going to do some other art projects as well, whether it falls under like writing or dance or just art. But yeah, we want to say a big thank you for having us as the recipient of Share the Plate. What you all are doing is fabulous. And with climate change being so urgent, the timing is not better. So again, thank you all. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Again, my name is Melinda with Thurston Climate Action Team, and a big thank you and a Happy New Year.
Please note that you can participate in the offering by making a donation online, through the church website, or by texting the number that will appear on your screen in just a moment. You can also mail a check to OUUC or place your offering in one of the baskets that those in the sanctuary will be shared with by an usher. May we remember that passing the offering plate is never just a practical exercise. It has always been a ritual reminder of that form of love we call generosity. May the offering now be generously given as it is gratefully received.
We came together this morning in community, bringing all that is in our lives, and there is a lot in our lives right now. In this space, we draw on the strength of our community to hold everything that we bring here with us. In this space, we share from our hearts what brings us joy and sorrow, what brings us worry and delight, what makes us weep, and what makes us dance. Let's open our hearts to the complexity of life, our own and others. If you would like to send in something to share, please look for the link on the online worship page on the OUUC website, or just send me an email and we'll bring it into the service next week. You will hear a drumbeat as we share today. It brings into our awareness that our individual hearts beat, and together we create the heartbeat of community. As we share, we place stones in the water, stones holding the complexity of our lives placed in the water of community. So right now I invite us all to just take a deep breath in and out. And may we open our hearts to receive all that is in our community today. This past week marked the 80th anniversary of the presidential order that forced more than 120,000 people of Japanese descent in internment camps during World War II, more than half of them US citizens. This violation of civil rights speaks to what fear and bias can drive us to. We open our hearts to the many people and families impacted by this violation. And around the world, our hearts weep in sadness as we stand in solidarity with the people of Ukraine as they defend their homes and democracy against Russian invasion and authoritarianism. May our hearts remain open as we do what we can to support their efforts. And I'll offer some suggestions in the Thursday Spark. Closer to home, Gail Reedy shares this morning that she mourns the death of her cousin, Steve Stilson, who died just this morning of stage 4 cancer. Gail, may you feel the love and care of this community for you and your family as you mourn. Roger Nielsen and his family express their deep and sincere thanks for all the cards and support offered in the wake of Anne's death. Roger shared that Anne's obituary is now available at the Funeral Alternatives website. We'll put a link in the chat. Roger, may you feel the warmth of community surrounding you and your family as you mourn. And last, Susan Kirkpatrick shares that she will have her second and final foot surgery on March 4th. Susan is asking for healing thoughts, prayers, and cards. You can find Susan's mailing address in OUUC Connect, or you can call the office. Susan, we send you our best wishes for a successful surgery and a speedy recovery. And now for those of you online, I invite you to share from your heart by entering in the chat. This is a time to share all that you wish, joys and sorrows, and whatever else you share from your heart. As we take in what is posted, let us hear the heartbeat of community and reach out our hearts in love and care to all those who share. And for those in person today, I invite you to come forward if there is something you would like to share, to bring into community. I invite you to come up through the middle aisle and return to your seats by the side aisles so we all have some space. You may place a stone in the water as you hold your sharing in the heart. And we also invite in the singers who are in the Commons today. Please feel free to come into the sanctuary to share. And we'll place one more stone in the water for all that has been shared from the heart, a stone holding the complexity of our lives, held in the water of community. And one more stone placed in the water for all that we hold in our hearts and that remains unspoken. I invite you now into a time of reflection, prayer, and meditation. I will offer a longer guided meditation today. These are challenging times, and I think our spirits need all the help they can get. So please arrive and settle in wherever it is that you are. And I invite you to take a look around you. Take in your surroundings. What colors do you see? What textures? What light and darkness? What do you hear? And when you are oriented to where you are, turn your attention to your mind and body. What do you feel next to your skin? The texture of your clothing, the air around you. Notice your thoughts and just let them go through your mind. And when you are settled, gently shift your attention to your breathing. being aware of breathing in and out normally and naturally. Breathe in, breathe out. And as you breathe, shift your attention to where you are touching your chair or cushion, bed or couch. Feel your connection to what is holding you. And then feel its connection to the floor. And then the connection of the floor to the earth beneath all of us. As you connect to the earth, our Mother Earth, feel that sense of being held by the earth below. And just allow yourself to be held by this earth. You are in a safe space, and you can breathe in and out with ease. As you breathe, feel how the earth rises up to enfold and embrace us. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere you have to go, and no one you have to be. You are held in love just as you are. As you breathe, notice how the earth holds all beings, whether they are acquaintances, strangers, or difficult ones. There is no bias, no discrimination, no separation. We are all connected. Feel that connection. And now return your attention to your breath. Just breathe, feeling the grace of this universe. No isolation or separation. Feeling a sense of connection and interconnection. Feel a sense of belonging, of being held in a way that is there for us always. We can feel that sense of being held anytime we want. We just notice. Let's take a breath as we move into a moment of silence together.
breathe out. Hands joined as if to pray. Breathe in, breathe out. Arms reaching to the sky. Then circling around, down to the earth. Eyes lifted to the light, to the light. Hands, branches catching rain. Breathe in, breathe out. Then rising like a stalk of grain. Breathe in, breathe out. Arms reaching to the sky. Then circling around, down to the earth. Eyes lifted to the light, to the light. Hands open to the day. Breathe in, breathe out. Hands joined as if to pray. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out.
Our first reading is The Invisibility of Whiteness by John A. Powell. John is an internationally recognized expert in the areas of civil rights, civil liberties, structural racialization, racial identity, fair housing, poverty, and democracy. He serves as the director of the Otherings and Belongings Institute, a UC Berkeley research institute that brings together scholars, organizers, communicators, and policymakers to identify and eliminate the barriers to an inclusive, just, and sustainable society, and to create transformative change towards a more equitable nation. These are his words. The invisibility of whiteness means that one doesn't have to notice that one is white. So there are people, and then there are black people. There are people, and there are Latino people. And people, just folks, turn out to be white, but we don't notice it. White people have the luxury of not having to think about race. That is the benefit of being white, of being part of the dominant group. Just like men don't have to think about gender, the system works for you and you don't have to think about it. So they live in a white space and they don't have to think about it. First of all, they think about race as something that belongs to somebody else. The blacks have race, maybe Latinos have race, maybe Asians have race, but they're just white. They're just people. That's part of being white.
Our second reading is titled The Unitarian Universalism That Does Not Yet Exist by UU Minister of Color Natalie Fenimore from the book Centering, Navigating Race, Authenticity, and Power in Ministry. Shirley Chisholm was asked why she, a Black woman, was running for president. You don't have a chance. Why are you doing that? And she said, because I am in love with the America that does not yet exist. And that's how Unitarian Universalism is also. I am in love with the Unitarian Universalism that does not yet exist. But I have to hold both the love for that thing and the love for the reality. It does not yet exist. It probably won't exist in my lifetime, and I don't think it will exist in that of my children, but I can't deny my love for it. You know, wanting to be there in the struggle. That's why I'm fighting. This ends our readings. Many of us know the civil rights history of the marches from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama in the mid-1960s. For Unitarian Universalists, I'm seeing a shaking head. Not everybody, but maybe many people know that history. And you can ask your aunties if you don't. For Unitarian Universalists, the story of the March 9th, 1965 journey across the Edmund Pettus Bridge lives in our collective memory as the epitome of UU racial justice. When the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King called the president of the Unitarian Universalist Association and asked UUs to join him in Selma, 2/3 of Unitarian Universalist ministers and many others went. March 9th, 1965 was also the day that 2 UUs were killed, Reverend James Reeb and Viola Luzo, murdered because of their work for racial justice. Some call them Unitarian Universalist martyrs. We tell this story over and over. We tell it to our children and to each other as a call to action for racial justice. The story of what came next in the UUA is not as often told. It is a story of division, conflict, high emotion, betrayal, and pain. This story has been told by the Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison Reed in his book, Darkening the Doorways, Black Trailblazers and Missed Opportunities in Unitarian Universalism. And in 2003, the UUA created an oral history of this time titled Wilderness Journey, the struggle for Black empowerment and racial justice within the UUA, 1967 to 1970. This captured some of the voices of those who were a part of this history. Others refused or declined to participate. The pain was still too great. We'll put links to these resources in the chat, and I'll share it in the Spark on Thursday. What came after Selma for the UUA is often called the Black Empowerment Controversy. Morrison Reed has called it the Empowerment Saga and the Empowerment Tragedy. Briefly, here's what happened. In the summer of 1967, Newark, Detroit, and other cities exploded in violence as Black communities demanded an end to racism. The country was on fire as it became clear that civil rights legislation was not enough to address African American poverty, oppression, or frustration. The Unitarian Universalist Commission on Religion and Race convened an emergency conference at the Biltmore Hotel in New York on, quote, the Unitarian Universalist response to the Black Rebellion. Morrison Reed writes that 37 of the 150 attendees in New York were African Americans. They made up 25% of those gathering in the denomination, where they had comprised only 1% of our total membership. They were hailing mostly from urban churches in a faith community that was becoming more and more suburban. Shortly after the conference started, 33 of the 37 African Americans withdrew to hold their own meeting. They caucused. Many white participants did not understand why they were not allowed to be part of the Black Caucus discussion and planning. And in that caucus, those 33 African American UUs formed the Black UU Caucus, or BUC. They set their own priorities and goals. And at the end of the conference, BUC made non-negotiable demands of the UUA board that included funding for Black programs, continued opportunities for Black caucus, and more Black representation in the UU Association leadership and in the ministry. The next month, the UUA board denied BUC's request. In 1968, the Black UU Caucus formed the Black Affairs Council, or BAC. There's a lot of acronyms in this story. It was a formal committee seeking association with the UUA that intended to serve as a coordinating organization for all of the UU efforts toward race relations and Black empowerment. Now, at the same time, some UUs felt that the direction of the Black Affairs Council, BAC, was too separatist. So they formed Black and White Action, or BAWA, as it was known, to channel the efforts of some who wanted to achieve racial justice through what they saw as more integrated means. So then the stage was set for the 1968 General Assembly in Cleveland, Ohio. UUs gather each year at General Assembly, or GA, to learn together, worship together, and to do the business of the association. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated just a few months prior to the June 1968 GA. In a very emotional business session that included shouting and shoving, voices in favor of full funding and voices that were saying their concerns about appropriate use of denominational funds, the General Assembly delegates voted to fund the Black Affairs Council, but not Black and White Action. Then in early 1969, the UUA board voted to fund BAWA anyway. So the next year, at the 1969 General Assembly in Boston, the UUA board proposed that the General Assembly delegates reconsider the funding for BAC and BAWA after learning that all of the UUA discretionary funds were gone. The denomination was broke. The GA planners put the decision about this funding at the very end of a long business agenda. And when the BAC leaders learned about this, they demanded that the agenda be changed. They felt they were being put at the back of the bus. So after a very heated debate that now included shouting and shoving and spitting, the GA delegates voted. And while a majority were in favor of changing the agenda, they didn't have the required 2/3 of the votes to change. And so the Black Affairs Caucus request failed. Angry and frustrated, most of the Black UUs walked out of the meeting in response. The mostly white liberal religious youth group followed them. And the remaining mostly white UUs were surprised, shocked, and hurt. After some time and extensive mediation, all the delegates returned to the Assembly Hall. They took another vote, and the BAC funding was granted for another year. But relationships were strained, and trust was broken. In January of 1970, the UUA board voted to stop all funding for the Black Affairs Caucus and Black and White Action, citing financial concerns, which were real. Membership by people of all races in UU churches was declining, and financial resources were shrinking. BAC members boycotted the 1970 General Assembly, and the resolution to continue funding for BAC was defeated in a vote of the delegates. And so the Black empowerment controversy ended, with many Black UUs leaving their churches. But the racial tensions continued. They continue today. And as Morrison Reed writes, this was a tragedy because no one who was involved felt understood or appreciated, much less honored. In 1968, the Unitarian Universalist Association, the UUA, was really young. The Universalist Church of America and the American Unitarian Association had just consolidated in 1961. Neither the Unitarians nor the Universalists had a strong history of racial justice work. Sure, some worked for the end of slavery and against Jim Crow, some worked for civil rights, but Unitarians and Universalists were not leaders in a movement calling for racial justice. The history of our denomination is that neither Universalists nor Unitarians ever gave much backing to African American congregations or supported African American ministers who might have formed congregations, writes Morrison Reed. He notes that prior to 1969, only 2 African Americans held significant positions of leadership in the UUA. And UUs never developed forms of worship, liturgy, writings, music, or theology that really reflected the Black experience. As Morrison Reed puts it, quote, Black folks came to UU congregations, not the other way around. UUs didn't come to African Americans. Since the empowerment controversy, there have been many efforts to address racial justice in our denomination. Journey Toward Wholeness, Beloved Conversations, the Black Lives Matter Worship Collective, Black Lives UU, and more recently, the proposed 8th principle, seeking to add to the current 7 principles of the Unitarian Universalist Association to affirm and promote, quote, journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community, by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. What I notice is the echoes of the 1969 tensions present in our nation and our denomination today. The pandemic has laid bare all of the ways that communities of color are disproportionately affected by any calamity in addition to the day-to-day challenges. In 2018, racial tensions in the UUA exploded when a white male minister was given a powerful position in the denomination that a female religious educator of color was seeking. That resulted in a reckoning that continues to today. The UUA leadership has aggressively moved to recruit and place Black, Indigenous, and people of color, BIPOC, in positions of power. If you attend any UU gathering, including General Assembly, you will see BIPOC UUs leading worship, leading workshops, leading the way. We are now seeing funding for BIPOC programs and for BIPOC groups. We're seeing continued opportunities for BIPOC groups to caucus and more BIPOC representation in UUA leadership and in the ministry. White UUs are learning to share power. And the tensions present in 1969 are still with us, of course. There are some that say that the voices calling for racial justice are too separatist, too radical, anti-white. When we speak of defunding the police or reparations, there are some who say that the movement for racial justice must be more reasonable in small steps and take place within our current institutions and organizations. And there are some who say that racial tension is just not why they come to church. And so this is an example of the complexity of empowerment. When we share our power or we demand our power, it can cause tension and conflict. One of the leaders of the Black UU Caucus, Joseph B. Samples, says in the Wilderness Journey documentary, "You can't empower people, they have to empower themselves. What people are afraid of is what happens after people empower themselves." Oh, yes, indeed. Just notice what we call this chapter in our UU history. Reverend Bill Sinkford, the first Black UUA president, writes, "Why, for example, do we use the term Black empowerment controversy? It seems to make the anguish of that period the fault of a relatively small group of African American UUs rather than the result of the white UU encounter with race and racism. The term white power controversy would be more accurate in many ways and would direct attention to the broad Unitarian Universalist movement and its need for healing and transformation rather than to the small, marginalized group of Black people and their allies," end quote. So what if empowerment means that we have to face our own power and our own need for healing and transformation? What if we have to face what is painful and change? Empowerment is also complex because it can put our principles and values in tension with each other. One of the tensions in this controversy is between the desire for justice and our use of the democratic process, which can be excruciatingly slow and can be used in ways that are unjust. Morrison Reeds writes that, quote, the Reverend John Wolfe, white minister of All Souls Unitarian Church of Tulsa in 1968, told his church in a sermon, I am forced to choose between two rights, democratic procedure or the redress of grievances of an oppressed minority. Morrison Reed asks, how does one decide whether to support Black demands for empowerment and justice or to respect democratic process with all of its vagaries and delays? What if empowerment challenges what we hold dear and forces us to choose? I've shared before that I believe our most pressing theological question is how we will be together. We are a denomination dominated by whites in a country where there will soon be a non-white majority. That is why I believe racial justice is our most pressing issue as a community, as a denomination, and as a nation. It is present in every other justice concern: climate, economic, threats to democracy, reproductive justice, and every other kind of justice that we humans seek. It asks us to acknowledge our power and the power of others. It asks us to face our fears of not enough. It asks us to wrestle with our values and beliefs and to be open to transformation. This is the spiritual work of justice, and that work is best done in a covenantal community. So OUUC's new mission is to empower. So here are some questions that we might ask ourselves as we live into embracing our new mission. What are the ways that OUUC operates that might be barriers to participation and that limit our inclusion? How can we share our power? What is OUUC's role in racial justice in Olympia, in the UUA, in the United States? Some other UU congregations have adopted the eighth principle for themselves, focusing on racial justice. Should OUUC adopt the eighth principle? And what would be asked of us if we did? We know that there will be some proposal to modify the seven principles, most likely next year. How will OUUC respond when the General Assembly adopts the eighth principle or something like it that calls us to make a commitment to racial justice? Reverend Natalie Fenimore reminds us that there is a Unitarian Universalism that does not yet exist. We can love the world as it is and love the world that we dream of, the dream of beloved community. As long as we are in this world and in this life, may we work for that dream, and by our actions, may we make it so. Amen. Troy, let's do our song.
All right, let's do our closing hymn. Our closing hymn will be hymn number 6, Just As Long As I Have Breath. And you can find the lyrics posted in the chat. Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
Thank you all for your presence today. If you are new to OUUC, we'd love to hear from you. You can fill out a visitor card at the link in the chat, or please talk to a greeter. To our Zoom audience, please stay online if you'd like to join in virtual coffee and conversation. You will see an invitation pop up that will invite you to join a breakout room. The main Zoom room will also remain open for anyone who would benefit from having subtitles during the breakout room chat. If you would like to stay in the main room, simply ignore the invitation to join a breakout room and sit tight. Once you are settled in your breakout room, please introduce yourself to anyone you don't know. If you are not planning to stay for coffee chat, it helps us divide evenly if you find the red leave button and step out. The coffee chat breakout rooms will end after about 20 minutes and will warn you 1 minute before we end. And if you are attending in person, you can join a reflection circle with Reverend Mary near the rocker or just stay to chat. And don't forget to come back to the main room after the coffee chat or stay here for our After Church with Melanie Ransom talk show. Today's guest is Riley Ulrich. Thank you all for building community today.
We can't hear Reverend Mary on Zoom.
Make it so. May we move in peace.
Let's join together in singing our unison benediction.